Hello and welcome to the Lou Review podcast. I'm your host, Rosa Hart, and today I'm joined by Denise Sears. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me, Rosa.
So, Denise is the CEO in charge of SOS, which is a local nonprofit that impacts the world globally. So, Denise, can you tell us, first of all, what is SOS?
Sure. SOS is a global health nonprofit, and global includes local. We were started in 1993 by a local doctor at Jewish hospital. And the focus for the first 20 some odd years was 100% international. It was about collecting surplus medical supplies that otherwise would be thrown away and sending them to areas in the world where they could be really truly life-saving items. In 2000, I joined the organization very end of 2016, and I actually came here from West Louisville, from working in West Louisville. Although my background was international, so I kind of had that kind of perspective, and so as we greatly expanded our hospital network, we had an increasing number of supplies that were not going to be sent international. And we can get into that later.
Mhm.
And so I knew that there was possibility to use them locally. They were good supplies. There just wasn't enough date on them. So we started a local program, and then it kind of, we developed an education program as well. So that's what SOS is today. 30 some odd years ago, we were collecting boxes of medical supplies at Jewish Hospital and sending them internationally. Today, we are collecting medical items from hospitals across 6 states, and they are going internationally, locally, and for education.
Yeah. And you said you were working in West Louisville, but you have an international background. Where are you from?
Okay, so I am originally from upstate New York.
Oh, okay.
I went to school. I actually went to Georgetown University and then graduated from Columbia University. And my degree was in international economics with a
Oh,
focus on economic development in developing countries. It was a very narrow niche, which I then leveraged just into a traditional financial career because there just were not a lot of openings for me to pursue what I was really passionate about. And interestingly, it's very much part of my day-to-day focus now, just a few years later.
wow. You had
So
to
I
wait a
always
long time for that to be directly relevant, didn't you?
But I did. But that's what I always tell young people. If what you think you want to do doesn't happen right away, there's a reason. And when I look back on, 22-year-old Denise, I would not have done this job well. I didn't
Mm.
have the life experience. I didn't have the business experience that were really important. I would have been very book smart, but not life smart, and that is that is a crucial skill in my day-to-day work today.
Do you have a specific incident where you recall thinking, wow, if I had to handle that as a 22-year-old, I would not have known what to do?
Um, I think uh, being able, well, a couple of things. I don't think at 22 I would have had the courage to change this organization as much as I have, right?
Oh.
Um, you're just a lot more risk averse when you're younger, and when you get older, one, you feel like you've got, you're a little bit more tooled to take on a change and all the things that come along with it. Um, and I think you have greater insight into your team and into your partners because you just have life experience. So I think it makes you a better leader and a better partner. So I think I would have gone through the motions efficiently enough back then, but I wouldn't have had the emotional maturity to do it in a way that was needed to be able to really build consensus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, emotional intelligence is so key to everything because we as people are not on a spreadsheet. We are all
No.
variables, right? So, what are the changes that you've been able to implement in the organization? Or were you instrumental in making it more locally focused and
Yes,
its
that's one of the
impact?
key things that I did. I did it in 2019. I led us initially in 2017 to become nationally accredited. So that opened a lot of doors with respect to hospitals that sought us out to work with, right? So it wasn't us trying to cold call hospitals. In fact, I've got some hospitals that want to work with us, and I just, I'm trying to not slow walk it, but do it in a way that, it's like the, everybody's set on the last hospital, really solid before we bring on another, because they're not just hospitals, they're systems. So there's usually
Yeah.
multiple healthcare organizations, within that. So I think that's a very key. We've increased our international work by 300%. I think, is that right? Yes, 200%. Okay.
Okay.
Um, uh, so that's, been very, very key. Um, and a lot of that stems from us, the quality of our work. One thing I will tell you, I remember sitting here across from me is the whole wall is a map of the world. And I remember sitting here, I had a background in business development, etc. And I'm looking at this map and saying, well, I've built markets before, but you usually know somebody. I don't know anybody, like in Africa or Central America. So where do I begin? And I'm talking to people who had previously sat in this chair. None of them had the secret sauce, right? So what I learned is that if you do your job well. In other words, us serving our international partners well, word will spread. And so, today we're working with, ministries of health, because of the reputation that we've built. And we've done the same thing locally. Again, bringing that, if you do the job well, if you are partner centric, if you are working alongside them and not um, uh, managing them, so we're here to serve, and we have to remember that. And that the same thing has happened there locally, is that we have more and more partners that seek us out, that want to work with us. Honestly, I don't know if everybody knows this is a weekend, but I just had the Red Cross, call me this morning. So before I got on with you, I was getting some things to Red Cross. Not normally my job, but nobody else is here today, um, because there's still some residual responses to the most recent flooding event here in
Hmm.
Kentucky. So when I hear that an elderly person needs a rollator, then we're going to get it to them, even if it
Yeah.
is a Saturday.
Well, and that takes me back to the accreditation. Where do you get the accreditation
So the
from?
accreditation is done by an organization. It's the MedSurplus Alliance, which is part of the Task Force for Global Health, which is based in Atlanta. Um, they
Okay.
run a number of programs, including this accreditation program. um, what there are some key things that are kind of the pillars of the accreditation. One, we follow World Health Organization guidelines. Okay. one of the things that requires is we do not send expired supplies to.
Or supplies that will expire within a certain amount of time, right?
Correct, correct. Um, some people in this space have this idea that, well, they don't have anything, so something's better than nothing. And that is absolutely not the case. Now, we could debate, expiration dates, but I don't set them, you don't set them. We have to abide by them. All right.
Yeah.
Um, Two, all biomedical equipment is tested by biomedical engineers, and has to pass, that it is in good working order, that it's supportable, and that our partners on the other side have the capacity to use it responsibly.
Mm.
So it's all based in being responsible and ethical. Um, and there's a lot of other pieces to it. Otherwise, because there's only five organizations in medical surplus that are accredited. There are a couple of others, like somebody that's doing surplus pharmaceuticals, the totally different space. But there's
Mhm.
only five of us in the country.
Wow.
And there's ones I know. I know they send expired supplies, and that bothers me because it's it makes it harder for organizations following the rules because a lot of countries put you through a very rigorous customs process. The reason being is because they've gotten a lot of things that they can't use,
Yeah.
so you're burdening them, not helping them.
Yeah.
um,
You're not trying to
uh,
just throw things away.
right. um, on the local side, again, we bring that same a sense of responsibility and ethics, right? So if they are medical supplies, they're not expired, right? So I don't care if it is an outreach team going and serving the unhoused. They have in-date wound care or first aid. The only place, because we do get in a lot of expired supplies, that they get directed towards education. So all of the schools, from U of L School of Nursing to all of the allied health science programs at Jefferson County Public Schools, to independent certified nursing assistant training programs. So we have helped five independent programs open up. The first one in West Louisville, which was the summer of 2020, not an easy time for anybody to
Yeah.
open a business. And even so a lot of times it's nursing focused or medical associate focused, but we've also supported veterinary assistant programs, athletic training programs. So any youth that are kind of considering maybe wanting to be in healthcare, the first thing we do is kind of expose them to it. And some will say, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to do this." Well, better to know that than before you're, in college.
Yeah.
And others have told me it's what made them know they wanted to pursue a healthcare career because it made it very real for them. They were using the supplies. One of the young people that I worked with in West Louisville, a long time ago, was actually a student at Central High School. I didn't know she was there. We lost touch. She didn't know that all the supplies were coming from SOS, and we reconnected as she was graduating, and she was the one who said, I'm pursuing nursing because those supplies made it seem exciting to me.
Wow. That's really cool. I
Yeah,
didn't even think of it that way.
yeah.
You have a lot of cool opportunities for volunteering as well.
Yes. So we are a very small team. Um, and the reason is because we rely 100% on philanthropy. So every dollar that comes in, we squeeze out everything we can to go towards mission. And I'm really proud of the team that we have here in that they are all very capable of wearing multiple hats, right? So, you know, that's just been the way I've always operated, and they're all young, so I think, you know, they've picked up from me. And so volunteers are truly the heart of the organization. We have volunteers in every day that we're open, everything from retired nurses to we recently had a fourth grade class here. The teacher
Oh,
loves the volunteerism, teaching the youth about volunteerism. They learn a little bit about the world because we talk about where, you know, these supplies may go. And they do something, you know, simple like maybe count gloves and bag
mhm.
them up. So we can, you know, we can tailor a volunteer experience to whatever group is coming. And yeah, so uh, that's a huge call, right? And I think in today's world right now, where we're all looking to feel good about something, right? This is such a great way to give back, you
Yeah.
know. So we'll get corporate groups, and then some of them will come back with their family, or their book club, or their church, right? So all you have to do is, you know, reach out to us, and we'll find something meaningful for you to do.
Yeah, and a lot. So, are most of the volunteers sorting? Because I came and did
Yeah.
a group sorting session with a bunch of
Yes,
nurses, part of an
they sort
organization.
medical supplies. So, and again, we tailor it. Like we're not going to give, you know, fourth graders needles,
Right.
right? So,
I got to
um,
do that.
yeah, no, no, they, you know, so retired nurses can kind of handle that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so it's all about, so, you know, sorting. Recently, we just had a group because we were in the middle of disaster relief, which is part of both our local program and our international. In fact, I have a great story
Oh yeah.
about international disaster relief. Um, and so they've been doing personal hygiene kits or
Mm,
first aid kits. So that's one of the reasons why disaster relief teams love working with us
mhm,
is we don't say, here you go, here's a pallet of masks, here's a pallet of gowns. We create kits. So we have a
mm,
flood cleanup kit, like that uses a hospital grade PPE to protect. People don't think about that, but within 24, 48 hours of water being on something, you start developing mold spores. So you don't want to just be going in and say, well, I'll just wash these clothes, when you have the option of really protecting yourself because you can really get sick.
yeah.
Um, so we've got those. We have medical triage kits that can go to shelters, and then we have the personal hygiene and first aid kits. So
Yeah.
everybody's. We've had, in fact, I think the Starbucks crew were in here recently, and they were doing, I think, first aid kits.
So, what was the story about the international?
Oh, so I mean, I will tell you, our local disaster relief, Eastern Kentucky in 22.
Mhm,
Um, we were one of the first groups on the ground, and we always tailor our response to the area being impacted.
mhm,
So if you've ever been in Eastern Kentucky, and I'll get to international, you know, you've got mountains and valleys, and everybody was trying to bring in tractor trailer loads that just were not suitable to the terrain. So we just kept bringing our van out every couple of days to resupply. But when the earthquake hit Turkey, um, uh, you know, UPS reached out to us and, you know, said, you know, I said, absolutely, we're ready to go. And they're like, well, we're not, you know, we're trying to get some other people because we need other, you know, organization stuff on the plane too. And they were very generous. They were going to, you know, fly a plane there. Um, Again, going to, you know, not every donation is a good donation. The Turkish government kept changing the rules, right? And so, and the reason we did respond to that particular international disaster is it met one of our criteria. We had a partner on the ground to give us real-time assessment, and they had the capacity to deploy. So we're not going to
mhm.
just send things to say that we sent them.
And dump them there.
Right.
Right.
Okay. And so our partner kept calling me and saying they just changed the rules. So, we would redo the paperwork.
Mhm.
It was a Saturday morning at 5 a.m. She called me, and her name's Denise, by the way. She called me and she said, they just changed the rules again, and we've got to get the airway bill changed. It's Saturday morning at 5 a.m. This plane is due to land at 11 a.m. I'm like, who am I? So I start emailing people at UPS just in the off chance maybe somebody will be looking. And about 6 a.m., I remembered I knew somebody who had, he would be able to help fix this. And I remembered that his wife had a baby recently. And I thought, I'm going to call him. Because if he's not up, he should be up right now. So I did. I called him at 6 a.m. He was up, and he and I joke about
What
that.
a good daddy.
Yes, yes. And I said, Nick, I need your help. And he got it fixed. By the time, he contacted whoever, it got fixed 5 minutes before the plane landed because
No
have
way.
you had to have it changed and in order before wheels hit the ground. And so we made
Wow.
it by 5 minutes because I called him at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning. So yeah.
Well, talk about being partner centric to like
Yeah.
know these people so well
Yeah.
that
Um,
you know who you can call on in a pinch.
well, it's easy to be partner centric when you have such an extraordinary mission.
Mhm.
So can I just cite two
Yes.
people? So last Saturday, I'll get to that one in a minute, okay? Because that's really special. But I also was recently in Ghana where we equipped an OR in a region in the very north, very like the most undeveloped part of the country. There was no operating room in this region of 74,000 people. So we, anesthesia machine, OR table, lights, et cetera, et cetera.
Wow.
And the night before, a woman, very pregnant, she needed an emergency cesarean, and thanks to that OR, they were able to perform it. And the chief medical officer, who I went to visit the next day, introduced me to Christiana and her baby boy. And her gratitude, I remember her saying to me, because we always let people know it's not just SOS and it's not just Denise, it's all the people who stand behind us, the volunteers, the hospital
Yeah.
partners. And she said, just tears just welling up in her eyes. I get really teary when I think about it. Um, she said, please thank everyone. She's holding this precious little baby boy. Um, so, and I can't even tell you how many times I've met a baby or a mother in the developing world whose life was saved by SOS, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so on the local side, I have met some extraordinary people too, right? So, um, so we started pop-up wheelchair repair clinics
Hmm.
because we realized that particularly individual in the lower income, there's a high percentage of disability,
Yeah.
including with the are unhoused.
Mhm.
So about a year ago, we held our first pop-up free wheelchair repair and replacement clinic. Um, and the very first person who came to see us, it was at Velcal, um, was a gentleman by the name of Adam. He was unhoused, and he needed a new chair because the battery kept quitting on him. It actually left him stranded in a busy intersection downtown.
Oh no.
So we got him all fitted. Actually, I think we replaced the battery on his chair because he really loved his chair.
I was
Uh,
just about to ask, can they not just have the battery
Well,
replaced?
sometimes. So we replace the battery on his chair. Sometimes it goes beyond that. You really do have to
Right.
replace the chair.
Good.
I actually ran into him in old Louisville like a couple of days later,
Hmm.
and I said, "Hey, Adam, how's it going?" And he said, "Oh, it's great. It's great. Next time you hold one, I want to swing by and have you look at my tires." And I remember thinking like, we are like the Midas of wheelchairs now in Louisville. People are swinging through. But it was last October, so 6 months later, a doctor that we know came in and he was talking about his patient Adam. And I said, "Does your Adam have a little dog?" He said, "Yes." So Adam, because he had a wheelchair that was safe, well, that he felt safe in, he was able to access resources and had gotten into permanent housing. And
What?
he pulled up a picture of Adam. I didn't even recognize him compared to the man that I had met. This man was smiling and his hair cut and clean and, just clean clothes. And it was just, people ask, well, how is your work transformative? And people get very mired sometimes in data points. That's the story I tell. That's
Yeah.
transformative. Can we capture
Yeah.
every story? No, but every story we do capture is transformative. Last
Yeah.
Saturday, we had a wheelchair repair clinic down in the south end of Louisville. And one of the people that we helped, she did get a new chair. Her chair was beyond repair. She was 17. She's in an allied health training program. And she was just devastated, her mom was telling me, because without a working chair, she couldn't go to her clinicals on Monday. Um, Faith was born um, I think so she has no lower limbs, right? So she's
Mhm.
but so bright and resilient. She wants to be a nurse. That's her
Mhm.
goal. And
Yeah.
what I said to her is, Faith, you're bringing your life experience. If I'm being taken care of, gosh, I want you taken care of me, because if I'm scared or I'm worried about something, I know you've felt that before in your life with all the surgeries that you've had and all the experiences and with doctors and hospitals and nurses. You
Mhm.
bring an empathy that can't be taught. And
Yeah.
so I am her cheerleader. I am rooting her on.
That is awesome. And thank you for pointing out the fact that not all nurses look alike. And there's so much that nurses do that is not physical labor. I mean, it can be very labor intensive, but
Sure.
I'm currently not in a labor intensive nursing role, but it's about navigating the system of
Right.
healthcare, which it sounds like she probably has a lot of experience with that could be very helpful because
Exactly.
that
It's
eludes a lot of people in the healthcare system. They even don't know where to
That's right.
start.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Now, do you also partner with the Carrot program here
So, Carrot used to be, you talking about like NTech and Carrot?
for equipment?
Yeah. They're out of Frankfurt now. I think they used to have a site here. They don't anymore.
Oh,
So
okay.
we've kind of taken that place. So another key area that has grown exponentially locally is what we call individuals in crisis. Um, it started with some case managers reaching out to us on behalf of patients who insurance either would not cover, or they didn't have insurance. So I'll give
Mhm.
you an example. Fourth stage cancer patient. I was in the hospital recovering from a house fire, and his wheelchair was stolen. Well, he wasn't eligible for a replacement until for another 2 years.
Yeah.
So the case manager reached out to us, and obviously we instantly got him a chair. And just through word of mouth amongst case managers, I saw this grow organically in just a couple of months. This was last spring, and I realized that this was not work that was just temporary, but the need had always been there. That just nobody had known to come to us.
Yeah.
And so so in 24, we served over 400 individuals that were referred to us. And that was without even marketing the program. right? That was just strictly word of mouth. Now, as we look towards um, impending changes to Medicaid, what we're doing is we are working very hard to fundraise to build capacity because we know we're going to be called upon to double that number.
Mhm.
Um, we also serve clinics, safety net clinics, um, and they're going to need our help even more because as their reimbursement changes, if we can provide supplies to them and save them those funds, whether it's any kind of supplies that a clinic would need, so we're doing that as well, and it's going to become it's a critically important work in our local community. It already is,
Yeah, it is.
but the need is going to grow exponentially. And I always say, we want a prosperous, vibrant city of Louisville, right?
Mhm.
A booming economy, youth succeeding in school. All of that starts with health.
Yeah.
And so, if we have a segment of our population whose needs are not being met, that we can meet, you realize that each one of those individuals, and I will tell you, the vast majority are housed. They are in stable housing,
Yeah.
and and they are maybe working, or because of their needs, someone in the family now can't work. Right,
Mhm.
so there's an economic component to
Mhm.
and not just the humanitarian side of it, but
Mhm.
it's good for all of us for individuals' medical needs to be met.
Well, and to your point earlier about the patient who had insurance and had a wheelchair that then, for whatever reason, broke down or was messed up and they weren't eligible for another couple of years. This is something I actually just became aware of recently. Was we had a patient who needed a wheelchair, had a stroke, was doing well in recovery, and they were on through their insurance, basically a rent to own plan, where they were paying a monthly fee, and if they returned it within a calendar year, they could be eligible for a new chair if they needed it. Like if that person had another stroke that was even more debilitating, that needed a chair that did more
Right,
services, they could apply for their insurance to cover that. But if they kept that basic chair, then no matter what their condition was, even if their medical condition changed due to a new diagnosis, a new injury, they
right,
would not be eligible for
right,
a new chair that would meet their needs.
right,
And so that really made me sit up and take notice
right.
because I didn't realize that that was a factor. And
Yeah,
so I'm really thankful for the work that you're doing to meet these needs that are not covered by people who have jobs and have insurance, and it's not necessarily set up to take care of them.
right. And it's not just that individual, it impacts everybody in the household.
It does, yeah.
Um,
Because if
we,
that person is then immobile, they're more dependent on the people taking care of them.
that's right. And it creates a stress in the household that,
Mhm.
if there are, young
Yeah,
people under the age of 18, it impacts them.
yeah.
Um, there's also a number of people who we serve who are victims of gun violence. I would say probably 16% of the people that we help are victims of gun violence. It
Mhm.
may be kind of shortly thereafter, right? So they're released from the hospital. A lot of them don't have what we call stable housing. They may be housed, but they're on a relative sofa. So home health coming out is just not an option. And so we work with LMPD, we work with Louisville Metro Police, and other case managers in that space who will reach out to us. And have also reached out to some people that I know in the space of violence interruption, because a lot of times they're the ones who are the point person for that individual. And we want to make sure that if they need, a wound care, that they have access to it. That helps diffuse volatile situations, if you can show somebody that they can, that people care, right?
Yeah.
So it helps change the tone.
It restores that faith in humanity and that your
Yes,
community cares about you, not based on, they're not prejudging you. They're
absolutely,
here to help
absolutely.
you.
Another interesting statistic is um, uh, 90% of the women that we serve are over the age of 55. So they're elderly. A lot of times they are single because women have a longer life expectancy. I think that's still true.
Hmm.
Um, even this is not a sexy subject, but incontinence products, right? We've talked about the durable medical, but some of it's covered depending on the size.
Hmm.
But the vast majority of people in our community need sizes that are not covered by Medicare. And they're very expensive. There was an elderly couple referred to us. He actually had the husband had bladder cancer. He needed these products. And fortunately, a case manager that was helping them knew of us and referred them to us. What we found out was the wife was trying to manage a food budget for the month on $50 because that's all she had left after buying her husband the incontinence products that he
Oh
needed.
my gosh.
And now they have $250. No, not that that's a lot, but
Well, that's a lot
that's five
more.
times what they had.
So, are you getting donations of the sizes that are needed?
Yes. So, a lot of people who have home health services, once they're no longer needed, they often end up with a lot of extra supplies. Or sometimes when somebody, in the family passes away,
Uh-huh.
um, they'll get referred to us. So we have individuals coming in probably every day saying, I've got a car full of medical supplies, and those are the kind of things that we're getting. We
Good.
do not take pharmaceuticals,
Mhm.
just FYI. So tell everybody that. Um,
Do you
we'll
send
direct
those,
them. Hmm?
do you send those somewhere else? Like, where
Yeah,
do you?
we'll direct them. There are certain pharmacies that will take them back. Yeah, because they've been prescribed, and
Right.
so yeah,
Maybe controlled substances and things
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So, can you say where is a good place to take those, or does it depend
Right
on
to
where?
SOS. So we're down in Butchertown. Our address is 1500, so that's easy to remember, Arlington Avenue. And the zip is 40206. We're here Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Um, we do open 2 Saturdays a month for volunteering. It's typically the second and fourth, but depending on holidays or other things going on, that can be adjusted a little bit. But so anybody who has things, if they can come during those times. If it's a volunteer group that says, like we just had YPAL approach us, they want to do a Thursday night. We'll do a Thursday night to accommodate them, so it doesn't fit into, the hours that we have. But I would love young professionals. They're our future. I want them to know about SOS, and I want them to uh, grow the passion and compassion that we have here, because the world is just a kinder, safer, more prosperous place when we recognize that we are all part of one humanity.
Hmm. That's right. We're all neighbors, aren't we?
Hmm.
Well, thank you for taking care of our neighbors. And
Absolutely.
then, what is the website for SOS?
It's long. www dot SOS Health and Hope, and is spelled out, .org.
All right, and that'll be in the show notes, and I'll probably put
Great.
links to your social media as well
Oh,
in the
that's
show notes.
fantastic. Yeah, follow us. You can't follow us and not get a smile on your face, right? Because
Right?
there's always stories to read. It's just, um, we introduce you to some amazing heroes around the world, like that mom who walked miles and miles to get to that OR. Faith
Wow.
last weekend. So I think it's the people that we bring to our social media audience, and those stories of health and hope. We can all use them right now.
That is so true. Well, thank you, Denise. I
Thank you,
appreciate you
Rosa.
sharing the story of
Appreciate it.
SOS here in Louisville, Kentucky, and showing how this local startup of a nonprofit is literally changing the world.
Mhm.
And if you've enjoyed this episode of the Lou Review podcast, definitely subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, if it's audio or if it's watching the YouTube video. Please press like and give me a comment. Let me know if you learned something or if there's somebody else making a difference in the Kentuckiana area that you think needs to be spotlighted. And I'll see you in the next episode.